It started with a blinding green light slicing through the night sky, shaking the earth beneath Gerald Thompson's feet. The air grew thick, heavy, charged with something unnatural. Then she stepped out of the hovering alien ship, taller than any human, glowing eyes like twin moons, her skin a shimmering deep blue. She was no ordinary visitor. She was Queen Zifra, ruler of an intergalactic empire, and she had only one demand: total surrender. But Gerald? He wasn't the kind to back down. With a smirk and a firm stance, the stubborn farmer made her an offer she never saw coming: fertilizer. And in that moment, the fate of Earth hung on the strangest negotiation in history. What happened next? Well, you won't believe how this ends. Before we start, please, subscribe the channel by clicking card button on top right corner and hit the notification bell so you can get daily stories at bedtime. Let's dive in the story. The hum started just after sunset, low and steady, like a distant engine rumbling beneath the earth. At first, Gerald Thompson thought it was just his old tractor acting up again, until the cows started to panic. Rusty, his loyal mutt, bolted under the porch, his tail tucked between his legs. The wind picked up, whistling through the wheat like whispers in the dark. Something unnatural was coming. Gerald wiped his hands on his overalls and squinted at the horizon. The sky, usually filled with nothing but stars and silence, had come alive. A streak of emerald light ripped through the clouds, carving an eerie glow across the fields. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a storm. It was something else. "The hell is that?" he muttered. A moment later, the earth trembled. Not a soft shake. This was a full-bodied tremor that rattled his bones. A flock of crows shot out of the trees, screeching as they disappeared into the night. The barn door creaked, swinging open from the sudden gust of wind. Then, in the middle of his wheat field, the light touched down. Gerald's gut tightened. He wasn't a man prone to fear. He'd survived droughts, tornadoes, and government inspectors trying to hike his taxes. But this was different. He stepped off the porch, grabbing the shotgun that leaned against the railing. Not that it would do much against whatever was out there, but it made him feel better. The wheat swayed violently, bending in waves as if something massive had just landed. Gerald pushed forward, parting the stalks with his free hand. His heart pounded. The closer he got, the more he could see steam rising, something metallic, something alive. And then it unfolded. A massive, silver structure sat in the middle of his land, its surface smooth and glistening under the moonlight. It wasn't from Earth. That much was clear. Panels along the side shifted, releasing more steam into the air. Then, with a hiss, a door slid open. Gerald stopped dead in his tracks. From the shadows of the ship, she emerged. She was tall, easily 7 feet, her sapphire blue skin shimmering like polished stone. Her eyes glowed an unnatural white, and her robes, silver and flowing, didn't seem to move with the wind but against it. A crown, sharp and metallic, hovered just above her head, pulsing with energy. Rusty let out a low whimper from a porch. The woman raised a hand. Gerald's ears buzzed, and then, without her lips moving, a voice echoed inside his mind. "I am Queen Zifra of the Ziltharian Dominion. Your planet is weak. Surrender, and we may spare some of your kind." Gerald blinked. He hadn't expected that. He shifted his shotgun to his other hand, rubbing his jaw as he sized her up. "Well, ma'am, I hate to disappoint you, but you landed on the wrong damn farm." The Queen's glowing eyes narrowed. "You dare defy me?" Gerald snorted. "Ain't got a clue who you are, lady, but nobody walks onto my land and starts making demands." The air grew thick. Zifra took a step forward, her presence pressing against him like a heavy storm. "We do not negotiate with lower species." Gerald smirked. "Well, see, that's your first mistake." Us lower species got a real stubborn streak. A beat of silence. Then the ship behind her shifted, its panels realigning, humming with an energy that made the hairs on Gerald's arms stand up. More figures appeared in the doorway. Tall, lean creatures, their skin glistening like polished glass. They carried long, spear-like weapons that crackled with blue lightning. Gerald sighed. Well, hell, he muttered, adjusting his hat. This just got interesting. The air between them was thick with tension, the kind that made even the night insects go silent. Gerald could feel the weight of Queen Zifra's presence pressing down on him like a heavy storm cloud. Her glowing white eyes bore into him, unreadable, but filled with something ancient, something powerful. The alien guards flanking her stood perfectly still, their electric weapons humming softly in the night air. The ship behind them pulsed with an eerie blue light, casting long, shifting shadows across the wheat. Gerald exhaled through his nose, tightening his grip on the shotgun. Not that he planned on using it. He wasn't a fool. He had no idea what kind of technology they had, but he was willing to bet a rusted Remington wasn't going to be much of a threat. Still, it felt right to hold on to something solid. Queen Zifra lifted her chin slightly, as if assessing him. Then, her voice slipped into his mind again, smooth but firm. You misunderstand, human. This is not a request. It is a declaration. Gerald smirked. Lady, I don't take kindly to declarations on my own land. The alien guards moved in unison, stepping forward with the precision of a well-trained army. Their glowing spears crackled, illuminating the field in flickering streaks of electric blue. Rusty let out a sharp bark from the porch but didn't dare move. Zifra extended her arm, her fingers long and graceful, though tipped with sharp, black nails. Your people have wasted this planet. Your land is rich, yet your species squanders its potential. We require its resources. You will surrender them. Gerald let out a low chuckle. And what exactly do you think you're talking, huh? The wheat? The cows? Because I hate to break it to you, but my biggest seller is fertilizer, and I don't think you came all the way across the galaxy for a pile of manure. Zifra's glowing eyes flickered. Organic material is valuable to us. It sustains life. Your world is rich with untapped potential. Gerald raised an eyebrow. You're telling me you crossed light years just to scoop up some dirt? There was a long silence. Then, almost imperceptibly, the queen tilted her head. It is more complex than your primitive mind can comprehend. Gerald sighed, rubbing his chin. Yeah, I get it. I'm just a simple farmer. But let me tell you something, Queenie, there ain't a single thing in this world that's free. You want something? You're gonna have to trade for it. Zifra's gaze sharpened. Trade? Gerald nodded. Damn right. I don't just give away my goods. You say you need organic material? Well, turns out I got plenty of it. But if you want it, we gotta talk business. The alien guards stiffened. The air around them pulsed as the ship hummed louder, as if sensing the shift in conversation. Zifra studied him for a long moment, her sharp features unreadable. Then, she lowered her arm. You propose an exchange? Gerald grinned. That's how things work around here, sweetheart. You want to take from my land, you got to give me something in return. The queen's eyes burned brighter for a moment. There was something almost amused in her expression, though it was gone as quickly as it appeared. Very well, human. Show me the worth of what you offer. Gerald gestured toward the barn. Right this way, your majesty. You're gonna love what I got. As he led the queen and her guards toward the dimly lit barn, he couldn't help but grin. Aliens had come to take over the earth, but tonight they were walking straight into a business deal with a stubborn old farmer. And if there was one thing Gerald knew how to do, it was negotiate. The barn doors creaked as Gerald pushed them open, revealing a dimly lit space stacked high with burlap sacks, each marked with bold red letters. Thompson Farm Premium Fertilizer. The scent of soil, decay, and rich compost filled the air, a smell that might have made some folks gag. But to Gerald, it was the scent of hard work and profit. Queen Zifra stepped inside, her glowing eyes scanning the space, her long, flowing silver robes barely touching the dusty floor. Her guards followed, their luminous weapons casting eerie blue shadows against the wooden walls. The energy between them all crackled like an unspoken challenge, but Gerald wasn't fazed. The queen reached out, her fingers brushing against one of the sacks. "This is the substance you claim is valuable." Gerald folded his arms, leaning against the nearest post. "Valuable? Ma'am, this stuff is gold for farming. Packed with nutrients, it'll make anything grow twice as fast, twice as strong. Hell, I've been using it for years, and I ain't seen a bad crop yet." One of the alien guards stepped forward, a sleek, metallic device appearing in his hand. It whirred and clicked as he scanned the contents of a torn sack, analyzing the dark, earthy mixture. Within moments, symbols blinked across a holographic display that projected into the air before Queen Zifra. Her glowing eyes flickered as she read the results. This composition, the microorganisms, the biological enrichment. This is far beyond what our calculations predicted. Gerald grinned. "Told ya. It ain't just dirt. It's the lifeblood of a farm." The queen's expression remained unreadable, but there was a shift in the air, a subtle acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated this human. She turned to one of her guards and gave a short nod. The alien soldier retrieved a small, silver vial from a compartment in his armor and poured a single drop of luminescent liquid onto a nearby pile of fertilizer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the soil pulsed. A deep, unnatural green light spread through the compost, surging like veins beneath the surface. The ground trembled slightly as a tiny sprout burst forth, growing at an unnatural speed. Within seconds, the sprout had turned into a thick, healthy stalk stretching toward the rafters, its leaves glowing faintly under the barn's dim light. Gerald's mouth twitched. "Well, I'll be damned." Zifra stepped forward, placing a hand on the now thriving plant. Her eyes burned brighter. This changes everything." Gerald raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? How so?" She turned to face him, her gaze intense. "We have spent eons searching for sustainable organic material. Our colonies require it to survive. This, your so-called fertilizer, is more than just nourishment. It is a catalyst for life itself." Gerald whistled low. "So what you're saying is you want more?" Zifra lifted her chin. "We will require vast quantities. What is your price?" Gerald couldn't stop the slow grin creeping across his face. "Well now, Queenie, that's the real question, ain't it?" Gerald leaned against a wooden beam, arms crossed, watching Queen Zifra as she processed the reality of the deal before her. The glow in her eyes pulsed steadily, a sign that her mind was working through calculations and consequences faster than any human could. "State your terms." Gerald's grin widened. "Now we're talking. See, you may be from light years away, but business is business, and I ain't about to get the short end of the stick." Zifra tilted her head slightly. "You seek wealth." Gerald let out a low chuckle. "I already got that. I want something a little more useful. Technology. Tools that'll make my farm the best damn piece of land this side of the galaxy." The alien guards shifted, glancing at one another as if his words were unexpected. The queen, however, remained still. "You wish for advancements? Not power? Not control?" Gerald scoffed. "Lady, I don't give two shakes about power. I'm a farmer. I want what'll make my land thrive. Give me machinery that'll help my crops grow faster, irrigation systems that won't waste a drop of water, soil enhancers that make sure my harvests never fail. You get your organic material, and I get to run the most advanced farm Earth's ever seen. Fair trade, wouldn't you say? For the first time, Zephyrus seemed genuinely intrigued. You think like a ruler, yet you are a simple farmer. Gerald smirked. A good farmer is a ruler of his land, at least. Now, do we have a deal? She considered him for a long moment. Then she raised a hand, and a small hovering device detached from her robe, floating in front of her before unfolding into a thin, glowing screen. Strange alien symbols danced across its surface as she traced them with her fingers. Your terms are acceptable. We will supply technology that aligns with your request. In exchange, we will take what we need. Gerald nodded. Glad we're on the same page. But one more thing, I don't want no tricks. No fine print. We do this right, or we don't do it at all. Zephyrus' lips curled slightly in what could have been amusement. Honorable. Unusual for your kind. Gerald shrugged. I'm not like most folks. The queen turned to one of her guards and gave a sharp nod. Immediately, the alien soldier produced a sleek, silver device from his belt. He pressed it into the ground near the sacks of fertilizer. The device whirred, its surface unfolding into a complex network of wires and tubes. Moments later, it emitted a low hum, sending waves of energy rippling through the barn. Then, something remarkable happened. The air around the fertilizer shimmered, and the compost that had once been a slow-working process of nature suddenly reacted. The particles shifted, breaking down and reforming in seconds rather than weeks. The very essence of the soil seemed to glow. Gerald let out a low whistle. Well, damn, you just supercharged my fertilizer. Ziffer nodded. Your soil will now yield crops beyond your planet's natural capabilities. Our technology accelerates biological processes, ensuring optimal production. Gerald scratched his chin. Now that's what I call an upgrade. The queen turned to him, her expression unreadable. This is only the beginning. Prepare your land, farmer. A harvest unlike any before is about to begin. The first shipment arrived at dawn, carried in by massive hovering crafts that made Gerald's old tractor look like a toy. The sky above his farm shimmered with blue and silver as Queen Zifra's fleet descended, unloading crates filled with alien technology beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Gerald stood on his porch, arms crossed, watching the spectacle unfold. Rusty sat at his feet, ears pinned back, uneasy about the strange visitors, but too loyal to stray far. One of the crates hissed as it opened, revealing sleek, silver devices stacked neatly inside. Zifra stepped forward, gesturing toward them. These are nutrient synthesizers. They will infuse your land with enhanced regenerative properties, ensuring your crops thrive beyond natural limitations. Gerald let out a low whistle. Ain't that something? Guess I'll be the first man on Earth growing alien-enhanced corn. Zifra's eyes flickered. Do not waste this opportunity, farmer. You now hold a resource more valuable than you realize. Gerald raised an eyebrow. Oh, I realize it just fine. But let me ask you this. Why is it so valuable to you? For a moment, Zifra didn't answer. The hum of the ships filled the silence as her soldiers moved, setting up strange metallic structures along the edges of the fields. Finally, she spoke. Our colonies are failing. Our worlds are barren. We have expanded too far, taken too much. Now, we seek sustainability before we collapse. Gerald frowned, rubbing his chin. So all this is about survival? Zifra nodded. Your planet is abundant, rich with biological energy. But your kind takes it for granted, wastes it. You destroy more than you create. We do not have that luxury. Gerald sighed. Yeah, humans got a bad habit of screwing things up, but that don't mean we're all bad. Zifra studied him for a long moment before responding. Perhaps not. A loud beeping sound interrupted them. One of the alien devices flashed red, pulsing in alarm. Zifra's guards reacted immediately, drawing their weapons and scanning the area. Gerald stiffened. What the hell's going on? One of the soldiers turned to the queen, speaking in a rapid alien tongue. Zifra's eyes darkened. We are not alone. Gerald's grip tightened around the porch railing. You talking about the government? Zifra nodded. They're watching. Gerald cursed under his breath. He should have known. A bunch of glowing alien ships landing in the middle of his farm? Of course the government would be sniffing around. A black helicopter appeared on the horizon, moving fast. It hovered just outside the farm, its presence unmistakably hostile. Gerald exhaled. Well, guess we got company. Zifra's expression remained cold, unreadable. Prepare yourself, farmer. This alliance may soon be tested. The black helicopter hovered just outside the farm, its blades slicing through the air with a deep, steady whomp whomp whomp. A bright spotlight swept across the field, illuminating the towering alien crafts and the strange, metallic structures Zifra's people had set up. The tension in the air was thick, the kind that made Gerald's gut twist into knots. Rusty let out a low growl, his ears pinned back as the scent of trouble thickened. Gerald sighed, adjusting his hat. Well, I guess it was only a matter of time before Uncle Sam came knocking. Zifra remained still, but her soldiers had already taken defensive positions, their glowing weapons aimed at the approaching threat. A voice crackled through a loudspeaker from the helicopter. This is Agent Carter of the United States government. You are in violation of national security protocols. Step away from the alien entities immediately. Gerald scoffed, shaking his head. National security protocols? That's just a fancy way of saying we're scared cause we don't understand what's going on. Zifra's glowing eyes flickered as she turned to him. Your government wishes to control what it does not comprehend. They will not negotiate. They will take. Gerald exhaled through his nose. Yeah, that sounds about right. The helicopter spotlight locked onto Gerald, and a second voice came through the speaker, more urgent this time. Gerald Thompson, step forward with your hands visible. You are harboring an extraterrestrial force. This is a matter of global security. Gerald scratched his chin, then muttered, Global security, my ass. He took a step forward anyway, his hands resting on his belt. He wasn't one for causing trouble, but he sure as hell wasn't about to let some government suits waltz onto his land and take what didn't belong to them. Let me tell you something, he called out. I've been working this farm my whole life. I know every inch of this land, and in all that time, I ain't never seen a single one of y'all off errand to help when things got tough. But now that I got something valuable, y'all suddenly care? Silence. Then, a new voice crackled through the radio. This one was colder, more calculating. Mr. Thompson, you don't understand what you're dealing with. Gerald smirked. Oh, I think I understand just fine. See, y'all ain't here to help. You're here to take. But that's the problem, ain't it? You don't own this land, and you sure as hell don't own me. The helicopter wavered slightly, as if the people inside hadn't expected him to push back. But then, the unmistakable click of weapons being armed echoed through the air. Zifra's voice slipped into Gerald's mind. They are preparing to strike. Gerald's jaw tightened. Figures. He turned to her, his voice low. You got a plan? Zifra's lips barely moved. Do you trust me, farmer? Gerald's eyes met hers. He had no reason to. But then again, he had even less reason to trust the government. He took a deep breath. Oh, why not? Let's give him a show. The wind howled as the helicopter hovered lower, its spotlight blinding against the darkness. The voices on the loudspeaker were getting more impatient, more demanding. Last warning, Thompson. Step away from the alien entity and surrender your land for government inspection. Failure to comply will be considered an act of aggression. Gerald let out a slow exhale, adjusting his grip on his belt. Funny thing, he muttered, just loud enough for Zifra to hear. This is my land. I don't remember signing it over to Uncle Sam. Zifra didn't move, but her voice echoed in his mind, calm and unwavering. Your people do not ask permission. They take, unless they are stopped. Gerald glanced at her, his jaw tightening. Then I reckon we better make sure they don't take a damn thing. The hum of the helicopter grew louder, the sound of rifles locking into position sending a chill up his spine. They weren't bluffing. A new voice came through the loudspeaker, colder than before. We are authorized to use force. Gerald smirked, though his pulse was pounding. You boys really gonna shoot a farmer on his own damn property? Then, in an instant, everything changed. Zifra raised a single hand, and a pulse of energy rippled through the air. The helicopter's engines stuttered. Sparks erupted from its tail as the entire craft lurched violently to the side. The men inside shouted, scrambling to regain control, but the ship groaned under an invisible force, as if the very air around it had turned against it. Gerald took a slow step back, watching as Zifra's eyes burned brighter than before, her power surging like a storm barely contained. The helicopter began descending, not in a fiery crash, but in a controlled, forced landing, as if it were being gently pushed to the ground. The moment it touched down, the side door was thrown open, and half a dozen armed agents spilled out, weapons drawn. Stand down, one of them shouted. Gerald didn't move. Y'all are the ones pointing guns at me. One of the men, dressed in a sleek black suit, stepped forward. He had that look, sharp, calculating, the kind of man who had never worked an honest day in his life. Mr. Thompson, he said smoothly, lowering his weapon but keeping his stance rigid. You don't understand what you're involved in. Gerald raised an eyebrow. Don't I? See, from where I'm standing, looks like I struck a deal. You know trade? Something this country was built on. The agent's jaw twitched. This is bigger than you. Gerald shrugged. Maybe, but it's still my land. Zifra took a step forward, and for the first time, the agent visibly hesitated. We do not seek conflict, she said, her voice ringing through the air, no longer just in Gerald's mind. But we will not be taken advantage of. The agent exhaled slowly. What do you want? Gerald chuckled. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. The two men locked eyes for a long moment. Then, finally, the agent sighed, rubbing his temple. We can't allow unregulated extraterrestrial trade. There are laws. Gerald cut him off. Then make some new ones. Look around, pal. This ain't something you could just sweep under the rug. Silence. The wind rustled the wheat fields. Rusty let out a soft bark, breaking the tension. The agent exhaled sharply, then turned to his men. Stand down. The soldiers hesitated, then lowered their weapons. Gerald smirked. Now that's more like it. Zifra nodded approvingly. It seems your world is capable of reason after all. The agent shot her a wary glance. We'll be in contact. Then, just like that, they piled back into their helicopter. A few minutes later, the aircraft lifted off, disappearing into the night sky. Gerald watched them go, shaking his head. They'll be back. Zifra turned to him. Of course. But now, they will come to negotiate, not to take. He chuckled. Guess I got myself a hell of a new business. Zifra's lips curled slightly, almost a smile. And the universe has gained a most unconventional ally. Gerald sighed, looking out at his glowing fields. The first farmer in history to make an intergalactic trade deal. Well, he muttered, patting Rusty on the head. Ain't that something? Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.